I want to stress the fact that in history, many things which should not have happened, happen. Many things which should not have happened, happen, which is one more reason to reinforce as much as possible governance, global governance. But now this leads me to another question to the three of you. As we saw in the previous session with our Chinese friend, Chao Yide, it may be impossible to reconcile the views, the approaches on global governance, even in a relatively narrow field, huge in itself, which is the economic governance. Well, Yide told us explicitly that it might be impossible. So my question relating this to the current session is is there not a risk with the concept of multi-vector policy to gradually move towards, in fact, conflicting approaches to governance, which would not be possible to reconcile? And related to that, the concept of middle powers. I'm very glad, by the way, that Kazakhstan is so much emphasizing this concept of middle countries, which is actually at the core of the approach of the WPC since the beginning, middle powers. So to rephrase positively my question to the three of you, how can middle powers play a constructive role? I would say to force bigger powers to take a more reasonable approach, a more diplomatic approach to the major issues of the world. So let us start with Madame Brnabić.
It's a tough question, and I'm not sure that it's even possible. It certainly doesn't depend on us. I can tell you that Serbia has managed to position itself as the country which is, I think, perceived as a country that can actually build bridges. Only if you look only at this year, 2024, for a country which has only 6.8 million people, we hosted the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, and for the second time in the past 10 years. We have hosted the President of France, Emmanuel Macron. We have hosted Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz. We have hosted President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Our President had a telephone conversation with the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. We have hosted the President of Kazakhstan, Mr. Tokayev, the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, only in 2024, and many more other world leaders, which is quite unconventional, I would say. But that might be, I think, the answer to your question, is that, yes, I think when you have such a wide gap between different world powers, perhaps sometimes they look for countries, and will do that, hopefully even more in the future, that do talk to everyone, to come in and say, okay, can you tell us what this other person thinks, what this other country thinks, how can we actually, again, establish the communication channels? Because at the end of the day, any war needs to end by some kind of a dialogue. And I have no idea whether currently there are communication channels open between different conflicting, warring sides. I hope that they do, but it seems that sometimes, actually, for the first time perhaps in history, there are no communication channels open, and that is a frightening thought, I would say. So perhaps, you know, some of us can serve as a bridge between all of these different sides. Now, going forward, whether the situation will become even more complex, as it tended to happen when in the first term of President Trump, when there was actually a trade war between EU and the United States, and everyone else, including the Serbia as EU accession country, suffered. It remains to be seen, but and to end, I think what, you know, as not as the Speaker of the Parliament, as a kind of the citizen of the world, what worries me is that all of us together have much more pressing issues globally, such as climate change, that we need and can resolve only by working together. Now, the fact that we can't even resolve issues that actually depend on us, and that we have a, you know, increasingly more complex world with increasingly more wars in it, is a really worrying thing, because, you know, to put all of our knowledge, all of our technology to work together, we might not be able to solve the climate change issue. But to think that even on that thing we're not working together is something that truly is frightening.
Well, thank you very much. Before giving Mr. Darsalia the floor, I would like to remind you that this afternoon, the second session of this afternoon, starting at 2:30, there will be a conversation. I will have a conversation with Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy was the 55th Speaker of the US, of the American Chamber of Representatives, and he knows Donald Trump very well, very well. And he had some quarrel with him, but now they are reconciled, at least for the time being. And I think he will give us some insights of what might be the next few months and years to continue this sort of discussion. So now, Mr. Darsalia.
Thank you, and it's really difficult and important question. But I believe that international community is much stronger than any single country. And this is, I think, and in this regard, it really, well, peace is very important. But I think it's more important justful peace or just peace. Because otherwise, just try to have peace on expense of international law, it will just trigger future wars and future conflicts. And I think this is important concept. And in this regard, whatever even if it looks difficult, even impossible or idealistic, or whatever the sides are, the solutions have to be based on international law and just solution of the issue. And if international community takes into its arsenal international law, not any other concepts like pragmatic approach or something, then I think it will be possible just to not only achieve peace today, but also to prevent conflicts in future, because it will high cost for any country to breach the international law. And I think this is important, and this is what unfortunately is difficult to do today when we are talking about Russia. But history does not like questions if, but just imagine if Russia was stopped not in 2022, or it's not even stopped now, but if it was stopped in 91, when it triggered the ethnic cleansing of Georgians in Georgia's territory, if it stopped during the genocide in Chechnya, or in Transnistria, or its actions in Transnistria, or in 2008. And because we Georgians remember, we all the time hear this. Okay, yes, you had these problems, you have occupation, you have that, but let's pragmatically engage with Russia and hear what they want. They want just one thing. They don't recognize their neighbors as a countries. And and in this regard, we have, so before we will not take as our key orientation international law, we will keep asking who is next. Before we will not deal with the issue who was before, we will keep asking who is next. And so this looks difficult, this very even idealistic, but that's the only solution, unfortunately.
Thank you very much.
If I might
please.
just interfere quickly. At the same time, let's not make this into a overly too simplistic. Look at this too simplistically, because Russia, you know, I would say as a global superpower, is, as the global superpowers tend to get, is not the only global superpower that sometimes has complete disregard for the UN Charter and the international rule of law. Other superpowers do the same. So it's not the problem of Russia. It's the problem, I think, of the global superpowers. As you have said, you said, you know, there is no single country that is more powerful than the international rule of law, but they do behave as they are. And I know, again, based on my country, Serbia, you know, we were bombed in 1999 by NATO alliance without the decision made by the UN Security Council, because the NATO knew that it wouldn't pass by the UN Security Council, but that's precisely what UN Security Council is for. So, and then they've taken away a part of our territory, our autonomous province Kosovo and Metohija. It wasn't done by Russia, it was done by other global superpowers. So it's not, you know, it's not like, I think, you know, Russia has, you know, they've done something that they've seen others do before them.
Yes, and I totally agree that I did not say that international law have to refer only to Russia, but the international community generally. That's why Georgia does not recognize Kosovo as an independent country, because it recognizes principle of territorial integrity. But that's exactly my point. Basically, is that well, there is no any justification to breach of international law. Yes, so and just if things the things happened in past does not justify what is happening now. So basically, that my answer was referring, because it was a discussion about the Ukraine, it's Russia is not only violates the sovereignty of Ukraine, but it also challenges the international system and challenges and tries to revise the international system and make it based on a primate of power rather than on international law. And so I really don't want to go into discussing previous cases because there could be a lot of things before. But today we have, I think it's what is unique now is that Russia tries to replace international law with primate of power. And this is really unique in this situation.
Thank you very much. Before giving the floor to Roman again, this reminds me of a discussion I had in Moscow in the 90s when Russia was very weak. Discussion with Mr. Ivanov, who then was foreign minister of Russia. And I asked him, well, what can you do? What should be your basic principles to conduct diplomacy in such a situation? And he told me, oh, it's very simple. When a country is weak, it has to stick to international law. When it is strong, it is significantly different. And I think this theorem is verified almost every day. The relationship between the strength or weakness of a country to international law is an interesting research subject in itself. So, Roman?
Thank you so much. Fascinating to listen to the discussion and to your comments. And I think all of the speakers, including myself, will agree that what is needed is the UN reform. And I've been in diplomacy for 30 years plus, and as long as I remember myself, there is this conversation about the need for the UN reform, but we're still there. And more we see that the UN Security Council is deadlocked, gridlocked, because of the veto power of one of the 5 countries. We think that we need to get serious about this reform, and it has to have a stronger regional representation. There are countries that have much more economic clout than they used to have in 1945 when this arrangement was established. And I think it is increasingly obvious that the UN and the UN Security Council becomes increasingly, irrelevant, shall we say. And that's wrong. The UN is the only international unique organization, and we strongly, as multilateralists, we're strongly in favor of the United Nations and strengthening its mandate. And that can only be done if we are to build a more fair system within the UN. I know there have been various groups, various discussions, but they have come to naught so far. And that's very, very bad for the mankind, especially since we are facing so many challenges globally, not just wars, but climate change and the advent of new technologies that we all need to be taken care of together. But you mentioned the middle powers. Yes, we were called the middle power earlier this year by a German think tank. We appreciate this title, but we take it very seriously, and we understand that this requires a lot of responsibility. We're ready to share our experience. We're ready to contribute to the resolution of international conflicts, but we think that we can only do it together, again, perhaps as a network of like-minded middle powers who can come together and impress upon the superpowers that there is a great international community which stands for the international law. And if we are to follow the logic of Mr. Ivanov and to follow the rule of the strong one, this is the law of the jungle. What will come up of the world after that? Nothing good.
Thank you very much. So we